Hello, good morning. I'm Matt Addison. Today I've got Tom Greaves with me. As ever, we're going to be taking a look through the latest Liverpool transfer rumours for you this morning. We've got Ajax star Antony back on the agenda. We'll talk about him in just a second, plus a little look at Manchester United as well as their pursuit of Frenkie de Jong, also at Ajax, or formerly of Ajax, now at Barcelona, continues. So let's start with Ajax. Tom, I mean, he was linked with Liverpool probably a few months ago, maybe last summer as well, a little bit. Claims from Brazil at the moment suggesting that the Reds have been in talks with him again and with Ajax. It doesn't seem particularly likely to me, to a number of reasons really in terms of this transfer. But how much do you know about him? Would it be one that you're excited by, and could you see it happening at all?
Yeah, Antony's always one that I've been quietly aware of. He's not the type of player that I could see us signing straight away, because he's a right winger who's left-footed, and obviously Mo Salah's just signed a new contract, so I can't see that really happening. But he's 22 years old, so I can see potentially us going for him in the future. I mean, Liverpool haven't really, obviously he's Brazilian. Liverpool haven't really typically been linked towards the player, like a player profile that would be like a flair player. But more recently, over the last couple of years, you've seen that we've kind of adopted that as like a trait of how we play, with Coutinho and Firmino. So I think having a player that's got bags of skill is no stranger to a Jurgen Klopp side.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the limited amount that I have seen from him, he does kind of look like a player that would fit in the sense that he seems to work very hard going in the sort of defensive side of things. He's got that kind of work ethic to go with those traditional Brazilian bits of skill and flair that you talk about there. I mean, he's one that kind of fits in, but then the big question for me is if it's going to cost sort of 65, 70 million, which seems to be the price tag that Ajax would want, maybe even a little bit more than that if a couple of clubs came to the table. It just doesn't seem like the kind of money that you'd spend on a player that definitely wouldn't be in the first 11, probably wouldn't really play that regularly on the right-hand side where he plays for Ajax, just because Liverpool have got Mohamed Salah.
Yeah, I think Liverpool needs to try and focus their efforts on finding a replacement in midfield, to be honest. They've obviously been linked to Jude Bellingham, so I think looking for someone on the right wing, and especially as you're talking about spending 60-odd million right after Salah's just signed a contract, I just couldn't see it happening. But I mean, maybe one for the future, maybe in a couple of years' time. I think his contract is up in 2025 at Ajax, so that lines up nicely with Salah. He's Portuguese, speaks Portuguese, sorry. And there's a lot of Liverpool players in the team that actually speak Portuguese and are Brazilian, and especially along that forward line. So I think he'd slot in quite well. And we talk about, Jurgen Klopp trying to evolve this front three. And the place, the position across the front three that's actually the oldest now is Salah. I think he's 30 this year. So I think soon Liverpool are going to be looking at options there, and there's not really a lot out there. So it could be interesting to keep an eye on.
Yeah, certainly could be one for the future. But like I say, the kind of price tag that we're talking about, maybe it's one of those where if he doesn't go to Manchester United, maybe if he goes somewhere else, maybe Liverpool could pick him up in the future, but kind of falls a little bit in the Rafinha category for me. I think of just this summer probably doesn't make sense. Maybe if the timing had been a little bit different, then possibly it could have been similar. But we'll move on then. We'll talk a little bit about Manchester United as well in terms of kind of their pursuit of Frenkie de Jong. We'll touch on Cristiano Ronaldo as well in a second. It kind of seems like they're the big transfer story at the moment rather than Liverpool. Just, I mean, in terms of their business, it kind of seems to me like they're making the same mistakes that they've made in the past to a certain extent, and they're certainly making a couple of mistakes that probably Liverpool wouldn't make these days.
Yeah, and I'm being a Liverpool fan, I'm not exactly the biggest fan of Manchester United, so you have to take a step back and look at it objectively, and I just can't see many arguments for him. Like, you can totally understand him not wanting to go to United. I think the problem with United is that they don't know where the problem is. The fans blame the managers willy-nilly. All the players are overpaid and they're under-delivering. So especially, it speaks volumes that he's at Barcelona, a club that are in total financial ruin. There's talk of them going under, and he doesn't want to jump ship.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it, isn't it? He doesn't want to leave. Frenkie de Jong doesn't want to leave Barcelona. Barcelona probably want him to go because of the financial situation that they're in. But it does look like United have agreed that fee. But it just doesn't seem particularly sensible. Forget the amount of money, even if it was a cheaper player, even the fact that it's sort of 70, 75 million, even if it was a £10 million player, it's not one that you'd think if he doesn't want to go there, he doesn't really want to be there. No. It's probably not the best idea.
No, and like you talk about Liverpool looking for a centre mid. I mean, if he's on the market for a potential replacement for Bellingham, if we're not going to go for him, I mean, he was at Ajax, wasn't he? I think he left Ajax the season after they got to the Champions League semi-final and got knocked out by Spurs. Obviously, we went on and won it that year. But he's proven that he can do it. He's obviously a really good player. So and he's a defensive mid. I know he's not. He scored a couple of goals last season, I think, but he's not an attacking midfielder in the sense that Carvalho is or someone like that. Like he's fitting that profile of player that we've actually been looking for in Tchouaméni and Bellingham. So, I mean, I'd be surprised if we're not looking at him, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, just in terms of the United deal, whether Liverpool are interested or not, it does look as though he's going to head to Old Trafford, but it kind of feels like the opposite sort of way around of the Virgil van Dijk thing, where Liverpool obviously famously took him to Blackpool and had that conversation around whether they wanted to sign or not. He was completely convinced on it. Seems like the opposite pretty much in this one. But let's finish off with a quick chat around Cristiano Ronaldo as well. I know he's obviously a name that gets people talking. It looks like he's probably not going to leave United this summer as much as anything else, because not many other teams would like to buy him. PSG, Chelsea have ruled themselves out. Barcelona, we discussed in terms of the finances. Real Madrid, teams in Italy seem to be a little bit more sensible than to go for him again. But I don't know, he's another one really. It's not just Frenkie de Jong that I would look at as being a bit of an error. I wonder, what happens with him next season? What do United look like if he stays? Does he play? Is he a big problem for Erik ten Hag? And if he doesn't play, we know he's going to be grumbling and sulking and all the rest of it. We saw a bit of that actually last season, didn't we? So again, for them, that does seem like a bit of a strange one.
I mean, he's obviously a huge character in the dressing room, and that can be a positive, but I don't particularly think that it's a positive in a team that isn't doing very well. As you say, you can see that he's having tantrums on the pitch and blaming other players and shouting at them and stuff, and it's just not good for the morale in the dressing room. And that's not even talking about the type of money he's on. I mean, I think he got over 20 goals last year, didn't he? So he's like still delivering on the pitch at an age that is like higher 30s. What's he, 36, 37?
37, I think, yeah.
Is he? And that's brilliant for a 37-year-old striker. But I just don't think the negatives that come with him aren't worth like what he actually gives you.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think he's just one of those players that didn't quite fit into the system, wasn't the perfect fit, cost them a lot of money. He's going to be very difficult to move on. I think his contract is only a 2-year thing. He's already had 1 year of that, hasn't he? So possibly might be that's the way out next summer. But yeah, it doesn't quite feel like the right things are happening at Manchester United, which I suppose from a Liverpool perspective is probably no bad thing.
No, and the signing of him in the first place seemed to be a snap decision because he was linked with Manchester City. I remember looking at my phone on the day that it happened, and then the next minute, boom, he's at United. So it seemed like almost a play by Manchester City to just make him go there and trip them up. And I don't know. Since he came in, I've always kind of looked at the transfer and thought, oh God, but it's a typical United transfer, isn't it? They're just ripping off their arm at a snap decision to try and get someone who'll plug the hole. And I mean, he hasn't done because they're in the Europa League. And I think Frenkie de Jong can probably see that from the outside, can't
he? Yeah, I think the Europa League point is an interesting one as well. The kind of point around him supposedly wanting to leave is that they can't compete at the top. They can't play in the Champions League. So this idea that he picked Manchester United last summer because he loves them so much and because he's such a big fan, I think was laughable from the start, wasn't it? But anyway, I think we'll leave it there. There's obviously plenty more players, I'm sure, to be linked with Liverpool and probably Manchester United as well before the transfer window is closed. We'll keep bringing you all the latest in all of the usual places. The Reds, of course, playing later on as well today in pre-season. Myself and Theo Squires will bring you a live reaction to that just after full time on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, and that'll give you a reminder to watch that later on. For now, though, like I say, that will just about do us, and we'll catch you very soon.